Good morning, everyone. It's 8 a.m. We are here in Dijon and we're gonna explore the city center now. We're gonna check the outside of the buildings first, and then later, when they open around 9, half past 9, we can go inside if the entrance is free or not expensive. So yeah, there are many things to check out in Dijon because it is basically the capital of the Dukes of the Burgundy. So this region, which is very famous for its wines and nobility. So I think we will have a lot of history to uncover here. This behind us is the Place Wilson, where we were also yesterday in the evening. The Wilson Square is next to the center of Dijon. It is a circular square. The predominant architectural style here is the neoclassical style. The square features an arc, a bandstand built in the Art Nouveau style, and a fountain. The square was initially named after Saint Peter, but it was renamed after Woodrow Wilson in an attempt to laicize the city. Here next to the Place Wilson, we have the first church, the Saint Pierre Church of Dijon. The St. Peter Church is a neo-Gothic building from the 19th century. Standing next to the Wilson Square, the church gives a sober and austere impression. The structure is very simple, with 2 naves and a transept with a normal crossing. Let's check out the inside. The inside is not that much more exciting either. The original glass windows are missing since they were replaced by newer windows in the 60s. The church also used to have frescoes and other paintings on the wall, but they were removed by the request of the priest. However, the size and the humble ornamentation does make the church feel more cozy, and religious mass visitors might be warmly welcomed by some music from the Skew's piano. Well, that was the Saint Pierre Church. Pretty small, cute, simple. But yeah, what we found a bit weird is the windows. They have different styles. It's possible that during the wars the windows broke, or most of them, and they needed to be replaced, and that's why they did something like that. Not sure. Well, first I stop at a bakery. So I got an eclair, which is filled with some custard cream, and my wife didn't get anything because there was nothing without gluten apart from meringue, but she didn't want it. It was delicious, but so filling. I mean, I'm very full, and now trying to walk with it is a bit difficult. And this is the University of Dijon. The Faculty of Literature, and on the left the library. We are entering the Freedom Square now, and it looks like this. Impressive. Sorry, it's not Freedom Square, it's Liberation Square. Well, behind us is the palace of the Dukes of Burgundy, of Dijon. The palace of the Dukes of Burgundy, started in the 14th century, was built for the most part in the classical style in the 17th and 18th centuries. It serves as a royal residence for the Dukes of Burgundy, but it also houses the town hall and the Museum of Fine Arts, which is free of charge. And we found what is supposed to be the oldest house of Dijon. There was a man who was passing through with his dog, and he just touched this owl and held it for a couple of seconds, I don't know. It's strange, maybe it's a tradition here. Yeah, and you can see these owls here on the ground. It's full of, it's like a tour of Dijon. They might point to some houses over there, I don't know, but anyhow, this place has something with owls. So we are here at the Church of Notre-Dame. The Notre-Dame de Dijon is considered a masterpiece from the 13th century, built in the Gothic style in the center of Dijon. As you can see, the western facade is full of gargoyle. The gargoyles are only decorative, though in the past they did have the practical purpose of draining water. However, an usurper who was gonna get married died after being hit by a gargoyle, so they decided to remove all the decorations and replace them with fake gargoyles that are not at risk of collapsing. The church is built in the form of a Latin cross and has a lantern tower on top of the crossing of the transept. The church displays stained glass windows of high quality, but apart from that, there's not much of interest inside. One last thing that is famous about this church is the Black Madonna, which is the statue of a black virgin. So I would say a bit better than the last church, of course also because this is the main church, the Notre-Dame, but yeah, I think we've seen better ones. So we got some flan for my wife, well, some, also for the trip. Also there, eclair and another pastry. Yeah, from that place over there. Yeah, and it looks very good. So we're gonna visit the palaces. Let's say you almost have no money, you are homeless, or you're on a tight budget. Well, we really recommend visiting Dijon because the entry for most museums is free, and they even gave us a coin, so we don't have to spend €1 to put our stuff in a locker. So it's great. We can spend it on flan and pain au chocolat. The Museum of Fine Arts of Dijon is a free museum that displays the vast art collection of the Dukes of Burgundy. The art pieces are in different rooms classified by their era: antiquity, early Middle Ages, 17th century, etc. There are also some tombs inside. The former dukes are apparently buried here, but I cannot imagine that there are corpses inside. On a middle floor between the first and the second floor, you can find a series of sculptures depicting important people from the Bible, like David, Moses, and Isaiah. On the third floor, there is a collection of pieces from the Renaissance, not only art and sculptures, but also furniture and tableware. And when you go downstairs from the third floor, you will find this wonderful piece and one of my favorite paintings, the School of Athens. It shows Greek philosophers such as Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Diogenes, etc. However, the amazement doesn't end there, as we discovered other rooms on the second floor that we didn't see before, containing paintings from the 17th and 18th century. Showing battles supposedly from wars like the 100-Year War. Also featuring some luxurious furniture. We later went inside the tower wanting to check out the view from upstairs, but alas, there was no door to the outside, so we went downstairs again. The highest floor was not so interesting for us, since it displays the modern art collection of the Dukes. We did find a statue by Pablo Gargallo, reminding us of our stay in Zaragoza. That was a nice museum and everything was for free. So if you're here, you can come to the Museum of Fine Arts. It's free and full of interesting stuff. Now you can see this is the La Nef, and over there is the Basilique or Church of Saint Michel, yeah. La Nef is the municipal library of Dijon, in the building that used to be the Church of Saint Etienne. You can see from this building that the Saint Michel Church, Gothic building from the 16th century, is really close nearby. We are going into this museum, which is also free entrance. This was an exposition taking place in the old Saint Stephen Church, with statues from prominent military figures such as Napoleon or the Marshal Ney. Down the hallway in the center, you can see an enormous statue representing the Marseillaise, the national anthem, which was inspired by volunteers from Marseille, marching to Paris to defend the French Revolution. To the left, we find a part without statues that just shows the state of the church from the inside. Some stone has fallen off, and at the bottom you see the ruins of a previous church there was here in the 5th century. And then we can directly move on to the next building, the Saint Michel Church. The first mention of this church dates back to the late 9th century. Initially, it was not more than a simple wooden chapel. The church became too small for the growing number of church visitors, so the chapel was replaced by this church. However, because of renovations and expansions, it only appears in its current form since 1667, after the main facade is finished, which shows a mix of Gothic and Renaissance architecture. Inside the church we can admire some biblical paintings as well as the multiple aisles with side chapels everywhere. It seems to be two naves with transept and crossing forming a Latin cross. The church also houses relics, such as old documents and jewelry. So that was Saint Michel. It was bigger, a bit better than Notre-Dame. But yeah, I don't know, we expected more from Dijon. And what we found interesting is the naves. It's not like, the naves are not so big, so it almost looks as if the church is rectangular. So yeah, that's an interesting feature. Yeah, but that will be the end of this first video covering part 1. If you don't wanna miss part 2, subscribe, it's coming up soon.